Okay, so hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of AI and Oats, which is my daily show where I talk about some AI news and answer some AI questions. But if you're new here, welcome. Who am I? Well, my name's Alistair. This is my YouTube channel where I teach Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work and business use cases. But I also run an AI consulting and training business called Dux. So if you run a business or you own a business and you'd be interested in implementing AI to grow your revenue and grow your business, feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. And I also have a school community where I go into more details about the actual skills and setups I use in Claude Code and Codex, and the link for that is in the description too. But now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's jump into the questions. So basically the way this works is during the day I have a Codex automation that goes and looks through various Reddit forums and just kind of searches the web for interesting pieces of news or questions about AI, and then puts together this slide deck, and then I come and answer the questions or react to the pieces of news or just go off on tangents. So yeah, first question. I have two accounts which both have just subscribed with the free 1 month promotion. Is this legal? Right, so this is someone getting two accounts, getting a free promotion with two accounts on ChatGPT Plus. Well, I think if they're on separate emails, it's probably not illegal. I don't know for a fact. I mean, without kind of going into, I don't think it's particularly interesting necessarily to explore the ins and outs of the terms of service of kind of OpenAI and account usage. But what I will say on the note of having two accounts, I think that having two accounts legitimately is actually quite possibly good value for money. So I have two OpenAI accounts because I have one, which is like a top tier one in terms of the subscription, which I use pretty much absolutely to its max. It is worth, given how much they subsidize the tokens, that you get $8 grand's worth of tokens for $200 a month or something, is great. That's my daily driver, more or less. I'm always on it on remote sessions. I'm using it all the time. I basically squeeze everything I can out of it. I feel like it's great value for money. Just Codex in general is great value for money, I think, even if they have slightly put the usage limits down recently, which they may or may not have done. But I mean, today they just announced that GPT 5.6 Sol is now 5% cheaper not 20% cheaper on the API. So it's now $4 per million input tokens, $20 per million output tokens, I believe. And so whether that carries over to the usage limits, I don't know. I hope it does. But on top of that, daily driver max plan that I also have just the $20 a month one for my Hermes agent, because the nice thing about OpenAI is, unlike Anthropic, they are really accepting and allow you to use your OAuth for anything, more or less. So that's I also, for that same reason, have two Claude accounts with the same setup, whereas a top tier one that is my daily driver where I run everything, and then a kind of burner one because I got that for a while to set it up so that rather than using API keys, I could just connect my Claude account into OpenClaw, because that was when they were banning people for using their Claude accounts with OpenClaw. So I set up a burner account, and also I partially got it free from my university anyway. I actually don't use it still with OpenClaw anymore. I don't really use that second account. I've got rid of it. But for OpenAI, I think because they're so generous with what you can use with OAuth, it's actually really good value for money, I think, to have a second one that you use for all your agents. If you have Hermes agent, I have a second OpenAI account that is my main kind of model provider for that agent, and then I also have an open router key connected to it with just a little bit of money on, because if I'm using open router, I'm going to be using the Chinese models, which are going to be super cheap anyway. So I think, whether this specific example is within the terms of service, I don't know, but whether I think it's good value for to have two OpenAI accounts, I think it is. At what point does it make more sense to move your Claude Code workflow to the API? Well, from a pricing perspective, kind of on the topic we were just discussing, I think it very rarely makes sense. If you're going to build it for someone else, do it as a service, agents as a service or something, or kind of do managed agents, or build an automation for someone, then yeah, you're going to want to build that on an API, because it can't run on your own Claude Code account. I mean, the other thing is but like generally speaking, I think, like, quite frankly, going back to the other question we were saying, before you start paying API prices, you're almost better off just buying a second Claude Code account. Like, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I feel like you'd be better off getting a second account, like, to use more Fable tokens than paying whatever it is. I think it's $10 in, $50 out per million tokens for Fable. And so, you know, that is really expensive API pricing, and like, yes, it's a very, very good model, but compared to the subsidization, or whatever the technical noun is, that you get through the account, I would say, like, I wouldn't be, if you're at all kind of conscious of how much you're spending on AI, I would be quite hesitant to move to the API, and I'd really try to squeeze as much as I could out of the like weekly usage limits from my account before moving over to API. But if you kind of need to standardize it, or like share it, or sell it as a kind of automation or something, then I guess, yeah, you are going to have to use an API key. What is your favorite way to document repeatable workflows? Probably skills. Skills are like my go-to for that sort of thing. A skill, like a combination of skills and then routines or scheduled tasks, which are just going to run skills. But I mean, the strategy I like to take is do something. Like, let's say we're making a skill that is like for writing newsletters, for example. I will kind of go through, not manually, but like collaboratively with Codex or with Claude Code at the first stages, the first early iterations, and kind of actually, you know, work through it, say, I like this bit, I don't like this bit, the tone isn't quite right in that bit, let's find a bank of examples, like here are some previous ones that I like, that I've done, or like here are the type of writers I like for newsletters, let's put together a bank of examples, and then let's discuss the sensible workflow of, okay, you do this, and then it will give me a draft, I will make some edits, I'll say, okay, look at the edits, look at the way I edited it, learn from that sort of thing. So, and then as I'm going, at the end, I will just say, okay, now turn that whole process we just did into a skill. And then, if you don't know what a skill is, basically it's just a standard operating procedure for AI. So it will have like a skill markdown file. There's basically just like a super long prompt almost that just tells it exactly how to do this workflow. And then like within the skill, it can like know which pieces of like which Python scripts to execute and that sort of thing if it's more complex. And it will also reference certain documents which will be part of the skill, like references. So for, in the newsletter example, like a bank of good examples, and also kind of a voice writing style guide. And then that's the best way to document it. The other thing is, there are some features, like I believe it's called Chronicle in Codex, where you can go into the settings, and I haven't used it a whole lot, but basically what it does is it will screen record you, and you can do something that you would repeat, like a computer use task, and then it will watch that screen recording and turn that into a skill, basically. And so then you have a repeatable workflow that is actual computer use. I'm not sure if Claude Code has a similar thing. I feel like it does, but I don't know what they call it within that, because it is called Chronicle in Codex. So yeah, skills are really good. And then if you want to turn skills, you know, if you want to turn your repeatable workflows into actual automations, then just set them up as a scheduled task or a routine that can go run that skill. Some of the scheduled tasks don't necessarily run skills per se. It's just kind of like I will brainstorm something with Claude Code or Codex and like create like a big prompt.md or something, and the routine will just say go read the relevant prompt.md. But that is, if you actually look at what the prompt.md says, it's quite similar to what a skill MD would be. I mean, you can also then just get your AI to write code if it's going to be something more deterministic, and then set that up as an automated, like just automate the execution of the code as a cron job. But I mean, like generally, skills are a really good way. Basically, if you already have a business with lots of like SOPs and just workflows that you've already documented kind of for humans, like let's say you have an onboarding process, part of which involves sharing these workflows with humans, that's actually brilliant, because then if you have good documentation, you can very easily just hand that over to the agents, maybe run through it once or twice with them, kind of collaboratively, as I was mentioning earlier, and then that is the grounds for a really good skill. So if you already have these repeatable workflows in kind of the form for transmission between humans, then you're off to a head start when it comes to kind of moving your business to be AI native or AI integrated. And so yeah, but skills are probably like my go-to, with a few nuances, you know, in different situations, but generally speaking, skills are the best way to handle repeated or repeatable workflows, in my opinion. Alright, I skipped this question earlier, but since this is a bit of a shorter episode, I think I'll come back to it. So, top 5 AI workflow automation tools for business operations in 2026. Now, this is some kind of like listicle article or something. I'm going to be honest, I haven't read it, and I'm not going to read it, but I will just quickly share my ideas on like best ways to automate AI workflows for business and business operations. Back in the day, you probably would have said something like make.com or NA10. Now, quite frankly, I think like your best options are going to be a bit like what we were just discussing in terms of like skills and that sort of thing. Like, just hand it over to agent. So if you need intelligence at multiple steps in the workflow, then yeah, just hand it to an agent, like a Hermes agent, if you want it, you know, Hermes agent or Claude Code or Codex. You know, obviously Claude Code or Codex, as if you've kind of set it up as a local routine, it might be a bit less reliable, but you could set it up as a cloud routine. And then Hermes agent, depending where your Hermes agent runs, if it's in a VPS, then yeah, brilliant, it will always be on. If it's on a local machine, then yeah, that needs to be on as well. But I would say like that is now the way. I feel like that's overtaken NA10 and make.com and these sorts of things. I guess maybe you say like the one drawback is it's kind of harder to set up like webhook automations, kind of. Like the agents are very good at cron jobs and that sort of stuff, but I myself haven't really found a brilliant way for them to respond to an action, other than having them frequently run like a very kind of lightweight cron job that just checks whether that action has been taken, and if it has, then it reacts to it. But I'd say like I run basically all my automations either as scheduled tasks for Codex or as routines on Claude Code, and I mean that covers everything, and I've kind of been doing it that way for like a long time now, probably like several months, because that way you can automate computer use as well. So whether that's like sending LinkedIn DMs and that sort of thing, which yeah, I mean, I don't know, technically you're probably not meant to automate LinkedIn, but you can do it using browser automation, or it's just, I would say that is like where everything is moving, is towards having your agents manage your kind of automations. And yeah, like I was saying, even if intelligence isn't needed at every layer, still you can just get like Claude Code or Codex to help you set up the cron job that then will just run deterministic code if the automation is simpler in that way. And so I guess you might run into the odd challenge where if something is deterministic, you don't necessarily actually want, like AI is non-deterministic, so if something really does need to happen the same way every time, then yeah, you probably don't necessarily want the agent actually executing, but that's when you could just get the agent to help you write the code that is then executed as a cron job or whatever. So yeah, like nowadays I would say for business operation automations, Claude Code and Codex, maybe Hermes. I would say I feel like we've moved on from NA10 and make.com, but you know, that's just my take. But maybe I'm wrong and more people use NA10 than I realise still. But it wouldn't be the approach I would take, or at least not the first approach I would try. Alright, anyway, I think that will wrap it up for today. Slightly shorter episode, but hopefully there were some useful things in there. If you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe, and just to mention again, if you own or run a business and you'd be interested in implementing AI, then feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. Or even if you don't run a business, but you're just a knowledge worker of any form and you'd like to get better at using Claude Code or Codex, or build out your own kind of AI operating system within them, then feel free to get in touch as well, and I can help you do that. Or if you're interested in our school community, the link for that is in the description too. But thanks very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.